between 18 and 20% of deals that we close month over month are from closed loss or website visitors campaign. If someone sends you something that is relevant that can help you solve a problem, you for sure is gonna take a meeting. And if someone sends you the best email in the world, but it's not relevant to you, you don't care and you're not gonna reply to that. Everyone has a mandate. How can you make this company better with AI? How can you have like an initiative to improve in everything, in marketing, in sales, in operations, in procurement? Anyone has a mandate. How can we do this better and do more with less? So you have people that's very receptive if you have something of values.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Evergrow Show, and today we're joined by Juan Manuel Bello, a civil engineering PhD turned founder who raised 20 million euros for his project Vidoqui and is now running go-to-market at 11x, a leading provider of automated hyper-personalized AI outbound at scale. Juan is an absolute go-to-market powerhouse, and if you're struggling with nailing your GTM strategy, this interview is guaranteed to give you the most impactful strategies, tactics, and tools that'll give you a competitive edge in a crowded market. Juan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Phillip, brother, thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to dive right in and just ask you, what are some things that you're super excited about right now?
I mean, so much stuff going on every day, every week with AI, right? So I think I'm very excited about how AI agents in general, not only in go-to-market for everything that we do, keep getting better, right? Like we saw last year how they were already like starting to first results, real results and outcomes, and now how we improve on top of that. Like you still need to provide a lot of context. So how can AI agents can really learn by themselves and many things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you explained that you still need to add context. I think a lot of people are coming into these tools expecting magic. You turn it on and all of a sudden you're in business and you're crushing it. But no, there's a reality in which you actually have to provide it with data. You have to train these tools. You have to, the same way that you onboard an employee, you can't expect somebody to just join your company and be successful the next day. You need to provide a lot of that context that is going to help these tools succeed. So I do appreciate you mentioning that caveat because I think it's really important for people to understand that and understand that that's what it takes to actually succeed with these tools.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like if like we've seen companies like completely like sales orgs and companies turn around completely with AI agents, but you need to put the time and you need to put the context. There will be a day that AI, and it's probably not that far from now, that AI agents can learn by themselves and keep really learning. Right now they can learn a bit, but not like humans can learn, right? And basically with less amount of data, right? And really keep improving. But right now, you need to provide the right context or right guidance, and then you can have amazing results. But you still need to do that. And as you said, some customers or some people come thinking like, yeah, I will just hire this, turn it on, and bye. I will have a bunch of meetings, a bunch of results, and it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And so I guess, given your background and the work that you do and the fact that, you guys power so many people's go-to-market strategy, I think that you guys have probably developed a very strong go-to-market strategy yourselves. And so I'd love to ask you about what are some of the most successful strategies, tactics, and tools that have been the most impactful to your work at 11x?
So yeah, we basically sell like an AI agent for prospecting, right? And another one for converting inbound leads on the phone. And we basically eat our own dog food, right? Like we basically test. And that's the only way that when something is not working, we feel the pain ourselves and we have to fix it for ourselves. Like most of our pipeline depends from our Outbound tool, okay? So that's what we use. And I think for us, we have tried multiple things. I think what we saw for ourselves and what we see from many customers that come to us, there's so many like low hanging fruit out there. Like depending on the stage of the company that you are, if you are doing outbound, many people focus only on outbound and cold outbound, and they don't have the bandwidth to go into really good outbound with close loss deals like website visitors, re-engagement of leads. So you invest a lot of money into bringing a lead into your door to speak with them, and then after a few calls or even before speaking, that lead, no one has the time to follow up in the right way, right? And reps, sales reps hates going back to all leads or doing prospecting, so no one really follow up in a really thorough way. And so one thing that we notice across customers and for ourselves is once we combine the data that you have a huge amount of data that's very valuable in your CRM. How can we just combine that with new research and in an automatic way, basically reach out to these leads, basically? Because people normally is like very afraid of, oh, I don't want AI to touch my previous conversations, close loss. Like, or I don't want, I'm scared AI might say something. But the reality is most reps are not doing this deep research into these accounts when trying to follow up. They're following up like, hey, has anything changed, right? And because no one has the time to invest 1 hour, half an hour into researching an account that already told you they don't want to work with you. So those type of things that I think you don't have the time now, it wouldn't make sense you spend a lot of time doing that. That's where AI is an like easy win for you to use that data plus new research, and you can always check before sending emails and all that. But you have like a consistent process that every week you have 5, 10, 50 accounts that the AI research and it's like, okay, these are ready to follow up again, trying to revive, for example, with close loss. And it's something that is getting like we close at least like 20 between 18 and 20% of deals that we close month over month are from close loss or website visitors campaign.
That's so crazy. I mean, there's two things that you touched on that I think are really important to iterate on, which is a lot of reps are not incentivized to look at some of the pipeline, like you said, closed lost, deals that went dead, deals that went cold. They're just trying to go after the hot leads because the compensation models are usually incentivizing them to close those leads that are the most eager to close. But man, if you think about it, companies that aren't taking advantage of the rest of the pipeline are literally missing out, like you said, on 18 to 20% of revenue just because they don't have the bandwidth or, the reps don't have the incentive to do that. And so I think it's really important to understand that a lot of the money is in the follow-up, which, I like to say that the majority of the deals close not on the first conversation, but throughout the course of nurturing that lead, throughout the course of consistently staying on top of that lead. And so that's a really important factor. And I think the other thing that a lot of folks, there's a debate around this, but I always like to say, as head of growth, I've worked with some really, really amazing sales teams, and some of my favorite sales leaders agree with me on this. You have to get them to either a hell yes or a hell no. I mean, there's no such thing as lukewarm in sales, right? You don't
Yeah.
get a maybe or you don't get a, we'll check it out. You want to make sure that the customer will either 100% close with you or they tell you, please leave me alone and never contact me again or or else. So I do think that there's this beautiful middle ground between, of course, some prospects are ready to buy and they have an immediate need and, they're ready to sign the contract and make the payment. But the majority of your customers will not make that purchase on the first call, on the first email exchange, on the first demo. And so staying on top of that pipeline is so incredibly important. And I think this is where AI really shines. It's willing to do the work that most humans are just not willing to do, right?
Yeah, no, and it depends. Like, you have to, and I agree with you. You have to be very intentional about is this person we can provide value for this company, and let's keep the conversation. And is this also a priority for you? And if not, okay, let's don't waste each other's time, right? And we try to be very intentional about that, and like running to the danger. Like, okay, sometimes it's you don't want to ask that uncomfortable question. There actually the deal is not a real deal, and you don't want to waste time on that. And to the other point, it's not a thing about that the reps don't want to invest in the time. Some reps don't want, but some reps really want to work really hard. It's just about you don't have the bandwidth, right? Like you have some companies have the luxury of having a lot of inbound, so they have reps having 5-10 meetings per day. They're fully okay. So, but most of those is a lot of that is a lot of noise, and that happened to us. We raised a few rounds from Andreessen Horowitz benchmark, and that brings a lot of like inbound leads. But you are not, you can have the risk of not selling to who you want to sell. Like you have to be very intentional. Who do you want to sell? And if you only sell to people coming inbound, you're not choosing. You're just selling to whomever's coming to you, right? So when you have your calendar packed with a bunch of meetings and you're on, it's always easier to pay attention to the next meeting. It's easier that to go back to the other ones, and that's why it's difficult to do really research close loss. And it's the same for even cold outbound. Like if you want to do cold outbound from scratch and you're an SCR, you're incentivized to do that. That's your whole thing. It's also tough to focus entirely into going super deep research, because you're like, how, like it maybe doesn't make sense for me to spend 1 hour researching Phillip when Phillip maybe never replies to me. So it's that balance, that fine balance between going super deep in the research and getting a scale. That's what AI comes into place, basically. Like how can I do super personalization at scale? And that's, I think, the big leverage, basically.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And it's so funny. I always bring this point up. You go on to LinkedIn, you go on to X, and you see email is dead, DMs are dead, cold outbound is dead. And then you kind of pivot over and look at some of the most successful businesses in the world, and that's how they build demand. That is how they generate their pipeline. But I would love to ask you, for those who are not as fortunate to have calendars that are booked, on a daily basis, what are some of the things that differentiate good cold outbound from cold outbound that falls flat?
I think a lot of people confuse like personalization with being relevant. Like I could be super, personalized, but it's not relevant. I could be like, "Hi, Philip, I noticed you live in New York," to put an example, but that's personalized to you, but it's not relevant. It's not giving you any compelling reason to reply to me. So what we try to do is go super, earn the right for you to reply to me, to have like a compelling reason to reply. And that's why you have to go super deep into the research. So it has to be about finding that relevant piece of information that creates a compelling reason for you to be actually replying to me. How can I add value to you? Like, okay, I noticed we can help you with this. There's many ways, but I think it's about finding that relevant piece of information. And there's many other like tactics about the type of subject lines, about the call to action. Like normally you shouldn't want to ask for a meeting right away. It's more about how can I offer you something of value before asking you to get something, because why will you jump in a meeting with me, right? So I think it's about that. And people, say the cold email is dead and all that is. And if someone sends you something that is relevant that can help you solve a problem, you for sure is gonna take a meeting. And if someone sends you the best email in the world, but it's not relevant to you, you don't care and you're not gonna reply to that. So I think it's about being very intentional about finding relevant information, and even before creating the email, right? Creating that email that is personalized and relevant and all that is finding the signals why these people should be speaking with me. Like actually why this person should be, it's not only like I want to reach out to this type of persons, this job title, but it's why this person in this moment should be speaking with me. And you, it's fine if you want to reach out to people that maybe shouldn't be speaking with you, just try to spray and pray. But you also have to be aware of the expectations that probably you're going to have way lower results from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always funny to me when I get messages of, hey, I see you went to Penn State. I'm like, who cares? Like, I almost forgot I went to Penn State. There's been a decade of time between then and now. Or, yeah, like you said, oh, you live in New York. Amazing. You can open up a directory and find my address. And It's always so funny to me how I get a ton of those emails, but the best ones that I've gotten have gone a layer deeper and maybe gone and checked out some of my LinkedIn posts, or maybe gone and
Yes.
checked out the last video that I posted on my channel and gave some commentary or some feedback about that. And I think you made a really, really good point about adding value, right? It's not just telling me about who you are, it's about what can you do for me that's going to be worth my time, and rather than doing the million other things that are on my to-do list that, I'm probably not going to get to, why should I take the 15 to 30 minutes to hop on a call with you, and what value can you add to my day? So that's a
And
really good point.
no one cares about what about you. They care about how can you help me, right? No one's like, oh, I did this and we helped this X amount of companies. It's like this is about how can I help you? What can I help you achieve? That's the key part, is how can you present it in a way that you are helping them accomplish something. That's the most important thing. And it's not putting a checklist of this great stuff that you have as a company or as a service.
Absolutely agreed.
One
Well,
thing we mentioned though is, even if we're doing outbound, like outbound takes a lot of effort, right? And it's something that people that have not done outbound before sometimes have like an expectation that it's like, okay, I'm gonna send 100 emails and I'm gonna get 20 meetings, right? And it's like, outbound is like, before starting to do personalization and outbound and scale, you have to first think deeply to do, like, does outbound make sense for my business? Like, what are the unit economics? What is my average contract value? So if you're selling a solution that is $500 per year, probably you should focus to do inbound, like something in product-led growth or something like that, and trying to do the numbers like, okay, if I perform within average of the industry, a bit better, a bit worse, will actually the numbers make sense for me to do outbound, right? That's the first thing, right? And then even before any tech or anything is having the right mindset, like outbound is about, have to show up every day, and understand this, like, that consistency, and that you have to try a bunch of stuff, right? Like, for example, Ramp is one of the companies having more success in history about outbound, right? And they're one of the first, like, trying to automate personalization at scale. And it's like, but then they have very successful campaigns, and maybe they were having like 3-4% reply rate. So from people that have never done outbound, they feel like 3% sounds like low. It's a low number, like 3% only. But that for outbound is huge number. So that having understanding like the expectations, and if those numbers are gonna work for the type of like deals that you can get from outbound, I think is critical. And understanding is something that takes time. Takes time to nail, iterate, and is ever going like effort. Like, you can find maybe a one campaign that is having amazing results, so you have an edge over anyone else in your market for a few months, but then anyone else is copying that same thing that you're doing, and you have to keep going and finding a new edge, um, to have success. Like Ramp did this campaign that, hey Philip, I noticed Penn State is playing against whatever you paying in football college. I can, if your team wins, I give you $50, and if not, you take a meeting with me. That was amazing when they did it a few years back. Now, if you do it after everyone's done it, the effect is not the same, right? So you have to keep evolving to finding the different ways to get people attention, basically.
yeah, absolutely. And that makes so much sense too. I think there's a lot of folks who are just kind of getting started in outbound, and, they send their first batch, they get a 0.2% reply rate. They're like, okay, outbound sucks. It's never going to work for my business. Well, no, that's not the case. Are you personalizing the subject lines? Is it good copy? Are you messaging the right people? There's so many different factors that are involved in, you know, whether it's going to be successful or whether it's going to fail. And I love your point about constant iteration. I don't think there's really too much, evergreen in outbound. It's constantly changing. You're constantly competing against the rest of the industry. The tool stack has been so democratized and is so accessible that, maybe 10 years ago, you would have had some edge with, mass personalization or mass sending. Nowadays, it's really the creativity, the targeting, and the signal that are going to make or break your campaigns. So definitely a very good point to keep in mind. And I actually love the other thing, which is, outbound doesn't work for all businesses. If you have a low ticket offer, you're way better off spending your time maybe running ads, maybe doing some sort of, inbound focus marketing versus if you have, enterprise offers and if you have a, much higher ACV or, if you are speaking to very specific niche segments of the market where there aren't, that many buyers, then it makes sense to really tailor your outbound marketing and really double down on that for sure.
And yeah, and the other side of that coin, there's some businesses that they need to be outbound, like they need to. But for the nature of the business, it's not like it's always a way to find like inbound, outbound. But many businesses they need to, for the nature of their business, outbound has to be really good. Okay, and now okay, let's invest the resources, let's make this happen, let's iterate, let's do different type of campaigns. There's many things that now AI can amplify that. You can before were doing like templates or something personalized, but personalization is constrained by time. Now I can do personalization at scale with AI, and that's where you can help like unlock a lot of gains for this type of companies. But yeah, for many companies out there, doing outbound doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, for sure. And so, obviously for 11x, there's an amazing brand, there's amazing investors, there's a lot of hype around it within the industry. But let's say that, tomorrow you were to join a startup that has, an enterprise offering, so it would make sense that outbound and, is a big part of the go-to-market strategy. There's no go-to-market infrastructure and a very minimal budget. What would be your priorities over the first 90 days in order to ensure that that company is successful?
Yeah, we spend a good amount of time understanding how we have like found customers before. Like where did we find success? Which customers are coming to us? Why they came to us? Why they bought? And try to find any pattern there to say, okay, these are the type of customers that really want to buy from us or where we provide the most like value, and what do these people have in common. So maybe it's doing outbound, maybe it's not starting with something different. Maybe okay, let me do certain dinners. I'm not asking for your money, I'm just inviting you to put you with other peers and adding you value. And then after the meeting, try to generate a business relationship, and I keep evolving from that, and I combine that I'm learning from these potential customers into some outbound campaigns. Like I really would think about, it really depends on which like resources you have beyond the budget. Um, because for some companies it makes sense to just target like directly the economic buyer, like the decision maker. For other companies, makes sense as easier to meet with someone else at the company, lower level. Let me get grab a lot of information from that person, and we can combine that intel that is anywhere like you cannot find online, combine that with personalization with AI, and reach out to this person, to the decision making person with a lot of value, right? So we'll try to be very mindful of understanding who needs to buy from us, how do we find this person, and if my product makes sense, and what are the sources where I can find the information. Like if I'm selling to dev, developers, right? Okay, so I'm selling to developers. It's totally different if I'm selling to people in sales, right? So where does these people live? What do they care about? I will like focus a lot on that, and if we have that figure out, I guess is trying to do more of what's working. Yeah, that's something I would think about. I think it's relatively cheap to try to start a small scale album motion, and I will iterate a lot, iterate a lot, iterate a lot, and when I find something, then I will use something like 11x to basically have a lot of success with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the point that you made about potentially leveraging some of those first meetings as competitive intel conversations. So maybe you're not talking to the buyer, maybe you're not talking to the person who is your target to make the sale. but you can learn so much just having conversations with different folks in different roles around a company that you can then reincorporate into your sales outreach, into actually trying to get to the buyer and trying to add value in those conversations once you've learned some of their pain points, once you've learned where they're struggling, what they can use help with. So, yeah, it's a really, really interesting point to keep in mind for anybody trying to sell into large enterprises. Any meeting with those companies is valuable and can be used as a learning resource to try to understand.
Yeah, and what other stuff I have that no one else have? Maybe I have a few customers that I have not that many, but a few that are super passionate about what I have. So maybe I'm gonna invite them to a meeting once a month, once a week, and invite multiple prospects so they can get value from these customers speaking about how they execute, because everyone wants to be informed about what the leaders in the market are doing, about experts are doing. And now that you have that, like a few years ago, I guess, like SaaS, it was everything with enterprise is very slow, right? But everyone in SaaS, you have to, you have to convince a bunch of people with doing enterprise. Now everyone has used AI for themselves personally. Okay, that's the first thing. So everyone has seen the value of AI in their personal life. On top of that, everyone has a mandate. How can you make this company better with AI? How can you have like an initiative of improve in everything, in marketing, in sales, in operations, in procurement? Anyone has a mandate. How can we do this better and do more with less, right? So you have people that's very receptive if you have something of value. So you say, okay, hey, listen, we are positioned as the experts in this field. You know more about their field, about what other folks are doing in that field than them. If you're talking with a CRO of a big company and you're speaking every day to 5 other CROs, you know more about what other people is doing, and they want to learn from that. Everyone that's executing on high level want to learn from their peers. So that's one example. Another example would be, for example, I think a company that they're selling to, especially to startups, they were using a software that is for venture capital, for venture capital to find startups. So you have to find different data sources and, different ways to actually reach out. And I will be very scrappy of how I find people. What experiments can I run that get eyeballs and attention? And, maybe it's inbound, maybe it's outbound. There's many. Yeah, you will need to have like more data to get into specific of details, but I will be like very intentional about actually what can we do and how can we test multiple stuff to see where is the best way to get our customers.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting to hear your take, coming from such a progressive company, but you're basically saying, focus on the fundamentals, man. Yes, AI can help improve the efficiency and it can, cover a lot of gaps that maybe humans didn't have the bandwidth to do, but the fundamentals are still really what drives the dollars. And it's such a good point that you made. I mean, AI as an industry has so many tailwinds right now. I mean, the budgets are there, the mandates are there, everybody's looking to explore solutions. A lot of people feel like they're behind, so it's really nice to be able to kind of come in and, be the expert to guide them and show them the path and show them the light. And it feels like so crazy these days where it seems like everything is just changing on a daily basis that the frenzy is absolutely there, and I think that's absolutely contributing to this, just amplified momentum within the market. But I would love to hear your thoughts and your predictions for what maybe the next 1 to 3 years of go-to-market looks like.
And I think something I will add to your point is also that AI agents are not gonna. They need like they're not gonna find product market fit for you. Okay, like you need to have clarity. Like AI agents, like hiring an employee, right? A bot that can do a lot of stuff and can actually amplify your team. That's the way I see it. It's not about replacing your team, but it's about how can you make your team do more with less. And what you need to have is clarity before that. That's why going to the fundamentals is like, okay, who do we need to sell, how, and what is that it resonates about our proposal to them, right? And once you have clarity about what is the path, then you can have an AI that can execute a lot to help you do that, but it's not gonna help you find product market. It's not gonna help you figure out stuff that you need to figure out by yourself. And we're very intentional to people that come to us to say like, listen, we're not here to help you prime problem market fit. We can help you iterate and test, but once you have find the right thing, that's when we can amplify and get your results. So to your questions about 1 to 3 years about the future of go to market, I think as always, like the fundamental stuff is always remaining the same. Like if you add value to people, you help them achieve something, and you find a way to present that in a compelling way, you will always, have success. I guess it's gonna be super interesting. There's been a few companies out there that are doing like AI agents for like to replace sellers, like account executives, like someone doing a video. We also have a product that is like for inbound, okay, and it's already very very difficult to achieve a good conversation with low latency intelligence in the phone. And we think that still like on video adding that layer of complexity is not there yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be there at one moment in time, right? So I will be very mindful of what is actually happening in my sales calls that is providing value to this person. Like how can I not only try to do discovery so I can get information and I present my solution as the best things to match what the people saying to me, but actually how can we be together in solving a problem that you have, and hopefully we can solve it with us, but maybe you just need to solve it in a different way. Maybe you need to find a change of mindset in your company. Maybe something else that is not has nothing to do with me. So I think people that go uh, out of their scope or out of their way to solve problems for people is the people that can have success, and on an individual level as well. Like if you're a seller and you're worried about is this gonna replace me and all that, I think you still need that trust and that stuff. But it's gonna be very exciting how AI agents keep improving and how AI agents keep doing other tasks that have like lower value, I guess.
Yeah. And it's actually something that I think about a lot, not just to the sales industry, but for the marketing industry, for the product industry, for developers. Everybody keeps asking, is this going to replace me? Is this going to take my job? But I think really the best thing that anybody could be doing is using those tools or figuring out a way to leverage those tools to just become 10 times better. Make yourself irreplaceable. If you can be replaced by something that basically is reading from a script, you probably weren't adding too much value to begin with.
What is the reason for you to be there, right? What is the reason for you to be there? And so I think, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of noise. No, there's already a lot of noise with everything that as a go-to-market. I think it's gonna be even more noise, and it's gonna be extremely valuable in companies how they leverage their own data. Okay, that no one basically what you as a company can leverage and no one else has. You have extra information about about your company, about your relationship with potential customers. You have that information. If you call someone else in a company, get rather more extra information. That's the extra work that people don't want to do, that can make a big difference, because no tool in the world can get an information that's inside of your company that you know more than anyone else. Okay, so that type of stuff, if you focus in the fundamentals, I have to do the extra work that will give me that extra information that position me to be like I can add value. I think will never go away, and I'm super excited to see everything else that AI agents can do to keep learning, keep improving, and that's very interesting for sure.
Love that advice. Figure out your core competencies, figure out what truly is unique and differentiates you, and then try to use it to add value. It's the winning equation. It always works, and it will continue to work in the years to come.
Yeah, yeah. We always try to think like if my best friends comes to us to buy from us, how will you run that call? How you run is different. Like you will probably ask, or your brother, whatever, sister, like you will ask certain questions to like problem solving instead of like selling, right? And then if you do that in a larger scale, it's like, okay, how can I take that approach to anyone else, and how can I think first about solving the customer's problem, not selling my solution.
Absolutely. Super sound advice. I have a very interesting question for you, and I think this one is quite impactful. If you had a chance to get one message in front of every single founder in the entire world, the current founders, the next generation of founders who are sitting, vibe coding the next unicorns of the world, what would that message be?
It's a very very interesting question. I will be yeah, I will ask everyone to think very deeply and very thoroughly about why would someone need to pay attention to me? Why would someone need to spend time with me? Like, would you spend time with yourself? Like, if you have this problem to solve, like, why? What is the reason? So, really, really try to very thinking about that why, and how can you like differentiate yourself uh, with that value proposition and helping them achieve something in the short term. Um, and I no, and something else. That's, don't be too afraid of being different and taking risk. Like if you are, like either you are, like you have, either you play super safe, depending on your size and your brand, or you really have to break the pattern of what everyone else is doing in the market, right? So I wouldn't be afraid of trying all this different type of stuff when posting online, when reaching out to Outbound. Nobody cares about you. Nobody remembers you. Nobody remembers the call email you sent the last week or the post you put online. So I will be trying to really mindful about let's try stuff. No one cares.
Such sound advice. I mean, number one, start with why. I think that is such a critical lens for people to try to look at everything that they do through. And I think they will very clearly become aware of this shouldn't happen. This should happen more. And it can really, help position somebody. And I absolutely love the message about take risks. It is really not going to hurt. I think the number one thing that holds people back from success is just the fear of maybe looking stupid, the fear of failing, the fear of making a mistake. But this is how the best founders and the best companies become the best, is through the mistakes, through the issues, through everything that they've learned along the way. But it won't happen if you don't try. So,
Yeah, like
absolutely
if you
agreed.
make an ad or anything that is like bland, don't speak really to no one, is kind of like okay, no one does not have success. It's better to have something that speaks only to 10 people, really speaks a lot to them. That's something that is kind of speak to 100 people, right? So that's something I would for sure do. And yeah, like always, like if you remove yourself and your customer from the situation, it's like, oh, if this person, try to think like that. It always sometimes brings clarity about, okay, super easy, super clear that we should do this, and that's where other customers are. Let's go meet them there. Let's go travel in person. Let's do what other people is not willing to do.
Yeah, like we said before, it's either hell yes or hell no.
Yeah,
Everything in the middle does not produce results.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
definitely great advice for people to follow. Juan, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you've dropped a lot of wisdom that folks are going to find super useful. If anybody wants to follow along your journey or follow the content that you post online, where should they look?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Juan Manuel Bello. That's it. I'm mainly there. I,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. I'm super excited to get this posted online, and I think this is going to help a lot of folks.
well, thanks for the invitation, and congrats on this podcast. Yeah, best of luck.